Welcome to Nineworks TV. Got a super fun video today. We're looking at the Porsche marketplace over the next 5 years and looking at 5 cars that I think are going to appreciate and 5 cars that I think could be going the other way. All right then, thanks again for joining us for another episode. A couple of things I want to say first of all. The first thing is, I just want to have a bit of fun with this video. I'm using my expertise and experience, 12 years now, in the Porsche industry and the marketplace. So whilst I am going to be using that to predict the 5 cars I think will do well and 5 cars which I would personally be worried about over the next 5 years, this is all a bit of fun, okay? So try not to get too carried away if your car is sitting either side of the fence here. The other thing is, as you well know by now, we've got a host of quality Porsche for sale on the Nineworks marketplace, all warranted with reputable dealers that are all ready to drive away. Check it out, go and have a look. One more thing I'd like to say actually is you might like to join the Nineworks Driven Not Hidden Collective. A load of perks, I'll pop a link at the bottom of the video so you can take a look. But you get to indulge in cool things as well as meeting a great community. You get cool merch and everything else that's exclusive to the DNHC. Take a look via the link below. Right, let's get stuck in then. I'm going to start really with my big message, my absolute certy, nailed on, is going to appreciate. It's the 996 GT3 RS, okay? Now, if anybody came up to me and said, I've got X amount, where should I put it in the Porsche industry at least anyway? My answer emphatically is the 996 GT3 RS. The numbers thing, first of all, makes it an absolute cert. It's so low in production numbers. There were only 682 996 GT3 RSs produced for worldwide markets back in 2003 and 2004. I mean, really, that is putting it right on par, or thereabouts, with the Halo 997 GT3 RS 4 litre. As I said, 682 made worldwide. That was the best part of 20 years ago. Factor in the fact that some of them will no longer be on planet Earth. It's an exceptionally rare Porsche 911. It's the first GT3 RS, so it's GT3 RS Genesis, and it's the last, conversely, RS to not have any traction control or driver aid. So it's that real nice sweet spot, lots of appeal for collectors and enthusiasts alike in there. Not to mention the fact the numbers are exquisitely low. A quick fact for you, why there's 682 996 GT3 RSs are only 682 people that wanted them. I think long term they could be sitting, providing you find a good one of course, right underneath, certainly not on par with, but underneath that Halo 997 RS 4 litre that I mentioned. It's nailed on, I'm telling you. Number 2, and I'm going to follow off the back of that GT3 RS, is the 997 GT3 RS 4 litre. It's currently one of the more expensive Porsche 911s you can get, but I still think they are undervalued. To remind, the 997 GT3 RS 4 litre, there were only 600 of those made. That was a limited and numbered production run. They were only available to the absolute best of the best of the best customers that had bought GT products and numerous GT products from Porsche in 2011. So we've got the numbers thing, which makes it highly collectible. The other thing in terms of specification, right, it's the first 4 litre car. It is the absolute pinnacle of the motorsport Metzger engine, certainly in cubic capacity and power. It's 125 horsepower per litre in a naturally aspirated car. Then you've got its spec, like the crank, for example, taken out of the RSR race car itself. Rumours, I think, are credible that Porsche actually made a loss on every single 997 RS 4 litre that the company made. It was a real, genuine parts bin special, and what will become really seen as the pinnacle of the modern classic 911 era, before we went to the longer wheelbase, rear axle steering, PDK for the RSs. Third car that I think we'll appreciate over the next 5 years and beyond is the 964. Anything, to be honest with you, anything that's got a 964 in it. So whether it is a Carrera 2 or a 4 or a coupe, a Targa or a Cabriolet, a manual, or even, dare I say, a Tiptronic, okay? Everything in that 964 bracket just keeps going up and up and up, and will keep going up as well. I mentioned this in a video earlier this year in 2023. The reality is the 964 has been admired for the last 10 years. Add to that this fascination by resto modders to resto mod the 964 generation, and I'm not talking just Singer vehicle design, although they are the chief culprit, I think, in terms of numbers being readily available of 964s day to day. All of these 964s, again, of any derivative, they just keep being hoovered up, okay? And you've got this almost perfect storm where the bad examples, well, they're going off to be resto modded, and the good examples, well, they're just being garaged, because everybody knows that the cars are becoming rarer and rarer and rarer, and therefore to find a good example of a rare car, it's a pretty good investment. Every week that goes by, it is a fact that there are less and less and less Porsche 964s on the road in stock form and available for us enthusiasts to buy. It's a fact. That is a trend that is only going to continue. So the 964 in stock factory form will become rarer and rarer. It's a no-brainer then. Any 964 you have, even if it's a cabriolet Tiptronic car, it's definitely going to be worth more in 5 years than it is now. You heard it here first. Okay, penultimate car that I think is going to increase or appreciate in value over the next 5 years, the 911R. Similar again to the RS 4 litre, I think the 911R really was the car of the 991 generation, the car of the 2010s, that car of the decade. For me, it remains, and I've not driven an ST yet, a new one that is. The 911R is the pinnacle of the modern 911. It's not an RS, it's better than an RS, it's a GT product special, okay? Think 4 litre flat six, 6-speed manual gearbox, not the shonky 7-speed that 911s had to put up with of the time, so that GT department 6-speed manual, and the fact it's a flatback, that holds huge appeal. Then there's the limited, the single mass flywheel, of course, that the Touring never got. So it's a proper driver spec. It's the ultimate GT department car. Married to all of that, again, you've got to throw in the numbers. They're always key to values, aren't they? The 911R was a limited numbered production run. And actually, by modern standards, i.e. what we've seen with the 992 generation, its production run of only 991 units, I mean, that's seriously low. If you compare that, for example, to the new ST, there's 1,963 of those. Now those cars, they are going to go for big money. If you consider the 992 RS currently, if you want to buy one, not through a dealer, but for a flipper, that's about 450 sterling currently. An ST, if you want to buy an ST from a flipper, that's going to start with a 5 right now, might even start with a 6. Compare that to the 911R, which I think has slipped off the radar a little bit over the last few years, if I'm honest. People aren't quite talking about that car like they used to, but I do think it's going to come right back round again. Compare that 991 to the ST, or for every 2 911 STs that are going to be made, there's only one 911R. Okay, so as I said, it's seriously, seriously rare. Also, again, if you pop a 911R next to the super wide-bodied 992 ST, I think that 911R is looking wonderfully classic already. It's not got all of the digital screens ahead of it. It's got the simple PCM unit as well. Lots of charm in terms of purity, all stacking heavily in favour of the 911R here. So although the ST is very much going to be the 911 of the moment, I think in the long term, really, the 911R is going to be the horse to back. All right, my last horse to back for a Porsche that's going to appreciate in value in the next 5 years is the 991.2 GT3 Touring. It was the first ever GT3 Touring. Kind of people at the time were calling it a poor man's 911R, which was not fair at all. The big difference with the 991 Touring and the current 992 Touring is the 992 Touring is a model in its own right, whereas the 991.2 GT3 Touring, well, that was a free optional package. Surprisingly, despite the furore when the car was released, not too many people took it up. So again, it's going to come down to numbers. If you look in the UK, for example, 991.2 GT3 with Touring package, there are around 45. I mean, it's not a lot at all, okay? You compare that to 992 GT3 Tourings, there are quite literally hundreds of them. A 992 Touring, by comparison, is not a rare car at all, actually. And Porsche's definitely been making hay while the sun shines in terms of meeting the demand for those cars. Hundreds of them. There's loads for sale on Auto Trader right now. Compare that to a 991.2 GT3 Touring, only ever 1 or 2 for sale. I do think going forward, the 991 Touring is going to fetch more money than any 992 GT3 Touring. It's as simple as that. They're my 5 Porsches that I think are going to appreciate over the next 5 years. Let's look at the 5 Porsches that I think might go the other way. As I said, I don't want to offend anybody here, okay? So if you're easily offended, best go and watch something else on YouTube. Let's dive in and have a look. The generation of 911 that I have serious reservations over in the long term, it's these long bonnet cars. To explain the point more, I want to bring up Elvis Presley. I've mentioned this on the 9 Works Radio podcast before, but I basically said Elvis Presley memorabilia for years and years and years broke auction record after auction record. And then around 10 years ago, that all dropped off a cliff. And the reason is, well, a lot of Elvis Presley fanatics, well, unfortunately they were passing away. This new crowd coming through didn't have that same level of enthusiasm. Me, for example, I couldn't name you 3 Elvis Presley songs, so I'm never going to care to own any memorabilia or any important artifacts from his career, although I can appreciate he was a very good musician, okay? I kind of feel like it's the same with these. You've got to look at your children or maybe even your grandkids, the Gen Z and below. They're going to grow up never really having seen one of these on the road, not really knowing too much what they're about. So the demand for those cars and the enthusiasm for that cars is going to be dying out, unfortunately, with the enthusiasts, okay? So look, in short, I just think that the age group that grew up wanting one of these, they're not really driving anymore, might not even be around, and certainly under the march of the time, that's only going to accelerate, I'm afraid. Now, the big difference, of course, between my Elvis Presley example, bear with me on that, and this model with the early long bonnet 911s is, okay, well look, this car is still very much around, it's still functioning, and it has a dotted line to the modern day with the 992. Well, yes, I agree with that to an extent. However, if you think this long bonnet car looks like a current 992, well then frankly, you work for Porsche marketing. They're completely different cars and will do completely different things, okay? So again, I think without the crowd being around to appreciate these cars, I don't think the future is particularly rosy for any of the long bonnet cars. Other end of the scale, and get this one out of the way because it's the obvious really, over the next 5 years, the generation that I can see cars values depreciating is the 992. And again, that is pretty much going to be most, not any, most products from and models from the 992 generation. Right now in the Porsche marketplace, people are demanding huge overs for certain cars. I mentioned the 992 GT3 RS that's around £450,000. In 5 years' time, that's going to come right back. I think this time next year, they're going to have 100 grand off of that car. So that car is definitely going to be rescinding. Similarly, other cars from the 992 generation, the Heritage Design Edition Targa, I don't view that car as a genuine, unique build like the 992 Sport Classic, for example, okay? The Heritage Design Edition Targa, it's just trinkets on a Targa. I think people are going to realise that that's not a particularly special car, so I definitely expect values of those cars to drop back. Likewise, the Dakar as well, and again, I'm sorry, I just don't get that car, particularly in the UK. We're a tiny island, land is hard to come by anyway, we just don't have the means to just go off dancing around a farmer's field in this off-road Porsche 911. I think the Dakar's best bet actually is being an optional extra package rather than a numbered production model in its own right. Currently in the Porsche marketplace, there's a load of Dakars for sale and they've all got delivery miles on them, which to me just goes to show that they're opportunistic owners, they don't really know what to do with them. Definitely over the next couple of years, certainly in 5 years' time, they're going to come right down, I think. But of course, all 992s generally, they will come back slightly, not anything drastic, just kind of the usual really. Under the march of time, as new generations come out, I mentioned the 992.2 and then the 994 generation that's going to follow it. Naturally, these cars values of them are going to soften. Okay, right, I'm going to finish with 2 more. Possibly controversial, again, this is just a bit of fun, don't hate on me for it please, but I think a car that is going to depreciate in the next 5 years is the 991.1 GT3 RS. Now it's a phenomenal car, I want to point that out. It was a real step change, a line in the sand moment for the Porsche 911 GT3 RS because, as I said, it went to electronic steering, the wide turbo body, rear axle steering, PDK only of course. It was a real game changer. The other thing is, and again in that kind of 2015, 2016 sort of period, Porsche definitely made hay while the sun shines, okay? And as a result, there are thousands of 991 GT3 RSs on the planet. Compare that to the generation before, the 997 for example, and you've got around about 1100 997.1 GT3 RSs. That's another car, by the way, that's massively underrated in the market currently. I think that will change in the future. And I think around 1500 997.2 GT3 RSs, so the 3.8. Those 997s, again, they're manual. I think they just feed into that traditional 911 Rennsport DNA in a way that, frankly, the 991 RS doesn't. That and plus the numbers, and honestly, I promise you, there are thousands of 991 GT3 RSs on planet Earth. I think going forward, if not in the next 5 years, not long after, I actually predict the 997.1 and 997.2 RSs to fetch more money than the 991 RS. Again, just purely a numbers game. My last tip, I think, for a car to depreciate, and this is looking outside of the 911 stable, is the 981 Cayman GT4. As great as that first GT4 was in opening up the mid-engine platform to GT department fettling, the reality is there's a Carrera S engine in the back of it. It's a motorsport chassis, yes, but not an engine. Also, Porsche made a truckload of those cars. Again, completely made hay while the sun shines. As a result, there's always been a complete abundance of GT4s for sale. I do expect them to come back, and I do actually think in 5 years' time, and this is a bit of a wild card, I actually think the 987 Cayman R could be worth more than the 981 GT4. And again, it just comes down to a numbers thing, okay? That Cayman R is perennially underrated. I've never known why values haven't kicked on, but if you compare the production numbers of Cayman 987Rs versus 981 GT4s, I think over a period of time, next 5 years, the R is going to be worth more. They're my tips really, or that's what I think, as a bit of fun, what's going to happen over the next 5 years for the Porsche marketplace. If you've got any other cars that you think could fall into either category, pop it in the comments below and let's have a good constructive chat about where we think the market's going. That's about it. Thank you as always for watching iMox TV. Don't forget to check the Porsche marketplace for quality used Porsche for sale, all with warranty. You can get finance and inspections and everything else, a host of features on there. Go and take a look. Until then, I'll see you in another video soon.